Chris Cuomo has been let go by CNN just a few days after being suspended while the aid that he had been providing to his brother, the former governor of New York, was being investigated. They just got rid of him over the weekend. And I have to say, at least, I'm very surprised by this. I thought they would do the thing that you do. You investigate, and most of the investigation is like sitting back as a couple days pass and saying, are people moving on? Are they moving on? Can we put him back on? And they didn't, although there were apparently new developments to the story. So we will be running through those. We can tell you that he'd been suspended just less than a week ago on Tuesday, after testimony and text messages released by the New York Attorney General revealed that he had been even more involved in his brother's political affairs than they'd previously known. Now he put out a statement, Chris Cuomo did, saying, "This is not how I want my time at CNN to end, but I have already told you why and how I helped my brother. So let me now say, as disappointing as this is, I could not be more proud of my team at Cuomo Primetime and the work we did as CNN's #1 show in the most competitive time slot." So we got more that we'll get into, but just the fact that they fired him, Francesca, what do you think about that? I haven't talked to you in 7 or 8 months, so we hadn't yet had this story yet. So what do you think?
I mean, a number of things. You're absolutely right that it is surprising that a corporation like CNN would take this kind of action against one of their stars. And I think it's indicative of the fact that there is more to this story that I know we're going to get into. But just on the face of it, on the conflict of interest by having a governor and a lead anchor on a major national news network be related to one another, be brothers. And it's something we've seen on all kinds of news media, right? From Meghan McCain to many, many others. In fact, I think a lot of people who've tried to break into media, especially at places like CNN or NBC, know that a lot of people break in because they have a family member already involved. It's legacy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and incredibly elitist, and we've gone over that. The thing that I wanna say about him, Chris Cuomo, recusing himself of the story, the major story of his brother's sexual misconduct, in addition to his brother's behavior with COVID, is that in and of itself, and the refusal to cover that is in of itself bias. You can't say, oh, well, I don't wanna be biased, so I'm not gonna cover this major news story. No, in and of itself, that is saying that you are basically silencing that story. There is a different way to do that. Look, be honest. I used to work at AJ Plus of Al Jazeera News Media, right? Al Jazeera, I remember when they covered the deaths at the World Cup stadium construction sites, okay? Al Jazeera covered the deaths. This is in Qatar, and Al Jazeera is partially funded by the government of Qatar. They covered it, and then what do? They said, by the way, this company is partially funded by the government of Qatar. Moving on. That's all you have to say. You say, this is what's happening to Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York. By the way, he's my brother, moving on. Like, there is a way to ride that line.
Yeah, one would think. I'm just, the point you're making really plays into what we continually try to make people think about. It's difficult because it's difficult to focus on the absence of something, that what the media doesn't cover can be as important as the bias that applies to the things that it does. I mean, there are a lot of issues with what Fox News says, but there's a lot of issues with what they don't say. They just don't talk about incredibly important stories that would make the people they like, the characters they like, look bad. Right. So that was an issue. I mean, look, there's apparently a lot of issues.
Yes.
With Chris Cuomo. I will also just throw out there, and this is just, I guess, maybe our own bias. He was basically the only person in cable news that would really give progressives a shot in bringing them on the show, including multiple people from TYT. You'll note that didn't stop us from covering the Chris Cuomo story, but he had Cenk on a bunch of times, he had Anna on a bunch of times, he had me on one time, and then apparently banned me. No, I'm kidding, the pandemic started, so they stopped doing remotes. And also Bernie was no longer competitive in the 2020 race, so they didn't care about progressives once again. But he did at least try it for a little bit, so that was nice of him, but there were other issues, clearly.
No, and just to say, like, that sucks, And also, I really did like him going off on some dude trying to call him like Mario and Guido and like anti-Italian stuff, Fredo in front of his face, and he like muscled. I thought that was hilarious and great. I was like, I stand.
Yeah, and he clearly got under the skin of the Trumps. Like, they were obsessed with Chris Cuomo.
Oh, yes.
I don't even know why, but they were really obsessed with him. Trump has done multiple press releases about Chris Cuomo. Really weird.
Very obsessed.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.